This is a show called Grow Your Power, presenting the skills and experiences of homesteading for anyone, anywhere who wants to save money, gain independence, and get down and dirty. My name is Anne Greenfield, and the name of my show today is Living a Better Life. I'll be talking a lot about money. I was 12 years old in suburban Ohio. It was a Monday morning. On Mondays, my mother would do laundry, and we would take out to a clothesline basketfuls of laundry. We'd hang the clothes to dry in the sun. We had a choice of two kinds of wood clothespins to use, the spring-loaded or the ones that just split up the middle. And then there were the clothesline props, wood poles with a metal hook on the end that would attach to the clothesline. The props would hold up the lines against the weight of the clothes. I can see myself now, stretching up to the strong white cotton clothesline, two clothespins in hand, to shake out an item, a shirt, a towel, and then clip it to the line. It was summer, and the heat of the day was just starting. The sky clear blue, the sun, the smell of a new day. I was working with my mother, though she was down the line a bit. I could hear a little hum from her, and occasionally a bird would fly over with a bird song. Why do I have such fond memories of this scene? I think because of the wholeness of being outside, a big wide landscape, the pleasant sensations of weather on my body, physical activity, using my body, the pleasant companionship of mother and productive work. And mostly, I remember the smell of the clothes when they dried, and we picked them and folded them and put them into the baskets. All of them were scented with this indescribable sun, sky freshness. If you've never smelled it, you have to. Sleeping on those sun-dried cotton sheets was delicious. This is probably the way you would dry your clothes as a homesteader. You would be outside a lot, working, gathering. Homesteading is integrally tied to nature. And before you buy products from a store, you would look to the natural resources. You would play with and explore the natural resources: the sun, air, soil, water. You would probably want to know where your food came from, and you would be active in securing it, either by purchasing locally, going to farmers markets, or growing your own. You will probably be eating really good, tasty food every day. I wish everyone had the opportunity to taste food fresh from the garden. In being a homesteader, you are much more in charge of your own life. You can live creatively, and less of your needs need to be met by a professional, by someone else. You can learn the skills that you need to take care of yourself and your family. You don't have much money, and you don't need much money. Instead of buying things, you grow or make them, and because of that, you are involved in a real way with your life. Your community is usually neighbors, and they're real whole people instead of the abstract ones we talk to on the computer or the telephone. Physical movement and physical work make up most of your day, and your body becomes strong and your inner organs healthy. You care about the air you breathe, the water you drink, and the food you eat. Your children can watch and imitate real work because it happens at home and their parents' work is tied to life. Parents don't just disappear into a big building. And there's time for baseball in the field with your kids, time for a crafting project with them. And love, there's so much that can be loved and cared for on a homestead. Dogs or goats and pigs and chickens and tomatoes and lettuce and squash and corn, not to mention all the wild organisms that can be around to watch and communicate with. Homesteading is first of all about creating just enough for yourself, with a little extra for sharing with neighbors and friends. Homesteading is a way out of money and a way to have more free time for family and friendships and your own personal goals. Money, a hot topic. Everybody wants more money these days. Nobody seems to have enough. Many people feel heavy money stress. People can't find work. People are scraping by every month to pay the rent. People live off junk food because it's the cheapest food out there. Many folks can't find a shelter that is affordable. And at the same time, people with more money spend lots of capital and creativity on advertising. Advertising that is aimed at convincing you that you need even more things. Our needs are what is keeping the corporations going. The corporate CEOs are getting rich off our needs. I was born in 1942, before plastic, before nylon stockings, before commercial yogurt. I believe I was in on the first major advertising boom via television. As you know, television commercials have always had catchy visuals and memorable music, and they repeat endlessly. My family was quickly captivated by companies who had products and services that would enrich our lives and make more money for themselves. Perhaps it started with cleaning agents. I have a strong remembrance of Ajax ads, ads for Tide detergent and Arm & Hammer. Necessities, right? Even though people had somehow cleaned their floors and clothes without a commercial agent for eons. Maybe we should call television Cellivision. And I clearly remember the visuals and jingles used to entice us to recreational items. Coca-Cola, Lucky Strike cigarettes, call for Philip Morris. Somehow, We were not told that these items were addictive, and we might want increasingly more, and that we might spend years later on trying to unaddict ourselves to sugar, tobacco, alcohol, or even to the cleaning agents that we now need. Money itself can be an addiction, right? We've lost the sense of what is enough, and we just need more and more. So it's 70 years later, and now there's a long, long list of things we need to buy. Microwaves and cell phones, Pop-Tarts and Snicker bars, plastic Legos and plastic Barbies, coconut from Indonesia and lamb from Australia. The world has become a world of stores, and we are a nation of people enslaved by what we think we need from the stores. Actually, what really, as human beings, do we need? I would list food, water, air, shelter and clothing in most climates, companionship, love. I think we can meet these basic needs without money, without the stress of making enough money, the stresses of working a job that we don't like, the stress of working harder and longer than is healthy. We do have choices. I'd like to propose the choice of a different lifestyle. A lifestyle of doing, growing, and making as much as possible ourselves. Instead of working to make money, we live a lifestyle that takes very little money. We can learn or recover skills that free us a little bit from the slavery of unnecessary need. I'd like to consider the skills we might need for self-sufficiency, and I'd like to look at some of the things we ordinarily buy to see what a home solution might be. Food. Instead of buying all our food, we can grow. We can grow our own vegetables and our own food staple, like potatoes, wheat, corn, or beans. We can gather many foods from the wilds. We can raise our own meat or meat products. My previous shows give specific information on food growing and gathering, and on raising livestock. You can check them out at Facebook Grow Your Power. I am offering the vision that it is possible to grow one's own food. I was able to grow enough food to sustain myself year-round, spending only an average of $7 a week on groceries. It can be done. I realize that to meet our essential needs begs the question of how to have access to land. So perhaps one of our essential needs is soil. In West Sonoma County, buying soil is very costly, and renting it even is sky high. When you do buy or rent, though, even a small attached yard can be enough to grow quite a bit of food. If you don't have any land, there are options. Container planting on a deck or around the house. Sharing a garden plot with a neighbor. Finding a community garden. There are many. You can work politically to turn an empty lot into a community garden. We can visit wilderness and public lands to gather food. Many a goat or a cow is shared for dairy products. You can volunteer at a farm in exchange for food. Come up with your own idea of how to access land. Water, another essential need. And one would think that to be self-sufficient, we have to live on land that has a well or spring, creek, river, or lake. Let's brainstorm on what other possibilities exist. Sharing a water source with a neighbor. A rain catchment system. 1 inch of rain coming off 1,000 square foot of roofing down through clean gutters will manifest 600 gallons of water. The water can be purified by the sun for drinking water. Perhaps water can be gathered from tree drip in our foggy climate. I've read that large pieces of canvas can be erected to make fog droplets flow down to a trough. Being frugal with water use or recycling water can at least minimize the costs of public water. Check out this current building model, an earthship, for ideas on recycling water. An experimental earthship community was allowed in New Mexico. The aim of an earthship is to, quote, adapt our needs to the already existing activities of the planet. In an earthship, all the structures and resources of the site are integrated and used for many different things. A south-facing greenhouse living room provides food and freshens the air. A rain catchment system funnels water first to drinking and bathing water, and then to dishwashing. Gray water from the kitchen waters the greenhouse plants. A dry compost toilet is used, or the water of a toilet is treated and reused. Air, an absolutely essential need, and the gift of the universe. Air is free to everyone. As a homesteader, we share the human responsibility of maintaining clean air. There are products sold for even doing this. On a home basis, there are air fresheners, perfumes, incense, air cleaners, air conditioners, dehumidifiers. When in fact there are many natural, free, or homemade items that can be used. Bouquets of flowers will sweeten the air. Dried flower sachets will sweeten clothes in drawers. Houseplants will freshen the air with the carbon dioxide-oxygen relationship that we have with plants. We breathe out the carbon dioxide that plants need, and the plants breathe out the oxygen that we absolutely depend on for our lives. I've read that the easy-to-grow spider plants actually absorb formaldehydes from the air. Personal body scents can be made from plant oils or just from rubbing a scented plant on your skin, like lavender or rosemary or rose petals or lime or lemon. Shelter. The costs of a shelter, renting or building a shelter. I believe this is the biggest cost we have and what most makes us all, except the top 1%, vassals to the banks. In fact, we could make our own shelters for comparatively pennies. A friend once said that everyone should have the right to create their own shelter. I feel so resonant with that idea. In our county, we do not have the right to build our own. We have to hire licensed professionals to design and build. We pay high prices for permits. We are obliged to use certain materials and construct in a certain way. This enrages me. There are ways, however, in this county to build your own structure. In Sebastopol and other California communities, there are citizen movements afoot to increase affordable housing and discuss the ways and means. Perhaps political action can change the strict regulations on materials and professionalism. At the moment, it is legal to build by yourself a small unit of 120-foot perimeter measurement, not counting the loft or building rise or a deck or outdoor kitchen. I have built a 10 by 12 structure, and I know from experience that the structure becomes a most meaningful space to reside in. The builder is wrapped in it, enveloped by it. These structures can be made from natural, free materials: trees, limbs, bamboo, straw bales, reeds, adobe, rock. For the structure I built, I used primarily straw bales and handmade adobe. I scavenged a lot of framing materials from the land, or I bought from construction recycle centers. As a cost example, I finished the structure on $2,500. I built another open-air shed, 20 by 20, with only land materials like large rot-resistant cypress branches and subsidiary oak and bay branches. Or I bought recycled materials like old tin for the roof. I bought only the hardware new. Clothing. Clothing can be made from scratch, from hides, from felted or spun wool, or woven from certain plants. I see so much clothing at Goodwill, flea markets, and garage sales. I swear we need not produce any more clothes for decades. Clothes swaps are a really fun way of freshening your wardrobe with clothes that are more unique than the local store offerings. A clothes swap means asking your friends and community to bring good clothes that they no longer want to a home or community space, arranging the clothes, and then everyone is invited to take whatever they need or want. No money. The last two essential needs: companionship and love. Now, you don't have to be a rural resident to be a homesteader, but often homesteaders will be rural, and often somewhat isolated. In the contrasting towns or cities, people are everywhere, though of course one must make an effort anywhere to actually connect with someone in city or country. Good friendships take cultivation. Indeed, in metropolitan areas, one's choices are myriad, more so than in rural areas. The negative side is perhaps having too many people around, many of whom are stressed by the system that homesteading tries to avoid. I lived on a rural homestead for 33 years with a small village within 2 miles and a larger shopping center 10 miles away. I came to know everyone within the 2 miles, and they knew me. I experienced a lovely sense of being acknowledged and belonging. A sense of belonging is cited by Andrew Maslow, a 20th century psychologist, as the third essential human need, after the basics, food, air, and water, and safety. Belonging is important, but I don't think we verbalize this need very often. The thing that's nice about having other homesteading friends is that there are many occasions for gathering together, for corn shuckings or potato diggings, for hide tanning or fruit pickings, for helping a neighbor put in a water system. Perfect occasions for chatting as you go. I found that I did not have to go to town for companionship and friendship. There's so much, plenty, already there in the village. If your life is immersed in nature, or you visit nature, a sense of belonging and acknowledgement can occur. Connection happens between you and some non-human organism, or with the cosmos as a whole. And this can be very satisfying. And it's so important to recapture this connection with the natural world. As I've said in my show entitled, We Are Nature, and you can find that show at Facebook Grow Your Power. And love. Love is connection and caring. It's everywhere, there for the giving and receiving. Let's take a musical break and move around and dance a little bit. And then I'll be back to talk about what are our less than essential needs and how we might meet them without buying things.
Hoy día luna, día pena. Hoy me levanto sin razón. Hoy me levanto y no quiero. Hoy día luna, día pena. Hoy día luna, día pena. Hoy me levanto sin razón. Hoy me levanto y no llego a ninguna destinación. Arriba la luna, oea. Arriba la luna, oea. Hoy día luna, día pena. Hoy me levanto sin razón. Hoy me levanto y no quiero. Hoy día luna, día muero. Arriba la luna, oea. Arriba la luna, oea. Arriba la luna, oea.
Y así el gato se convirtió en la primera criatura no voladora que voló. Pero eso no fue todo. Como complemento inventó la comida a bordo. Creo que voy a inventar el aterrizaje forzoso.
What lies beyond our essential needs? What do we spend money on? One of the biggest items is utilities. Electricity for refrigeration, laundry, lights, computer, music. What might be a homesteading option for refrigeration? Old-timers included in their building of a house a cool spot for storing all sorts of things. An underground cellar, or even a basement, can store everything from jars of jam to hunks of cheese to hanging sausage. Milkmen often delivered milk into an insulated milk chute. Old-time refrigeration was an insulated box within which large ice blocks kept food cold. An ice box, in fact. In my early years, we often called our refrigerator an ice box. But blocks of ice require replacement often and can be expensive. And in our county, a simple earth cellar could fill with water. My solution was to screen the lowest part of a pantry, exposing my stored food to the cool air of the earth. Later, I built an outdoor box that was cooled by cold air flow. It was easy to build, a rustic outdoor cupboard, screened at the bottom and with screen vents at the top. I sat the cupboard in the shade at the north side of my house, the non-sun side of my house. There are many items that we think we must keep very cold, but many foods will survive in just a cool environment. For instance, if hard cheese is wrapped in paper and not in plastic, it may dry, but it won't mold. Eggs, butter, oils, condiments, bread, grains can be stored in just a cool environment. Open jams, yogurt, potatoes, hard vegetables, fruit, tomatoes, avocados, milk for a couple days. All these things can be stored in such a cooler box. Fresh vegetables might last a couple days, but with a garden, your vegetables can be harvested fresh and no storage needed. Meat will not store for long in a cooler box, but some canning or drying techniques can be used to keep meat for months. My show on growing food discusses preservation techniques other than refrigeration. I had no refrigeration for 35 years. Another major chore in our lives is laundry, usually done in an electric washing machine and dryer. Without electricity, what could we use on the old homestead? A large metal bucket, maybe 2 feet by 18 inches deep. I would put clothes into such a bucket of soapy water to soak for a day or two. I was so happy to learn that a good soak actually gets a majority of the work done and saves on the harder agitation. I must admit that sometimes my clothes soak for a week. Not a good idea. Agitation. One can purchase an inexpensive metal laundry plunger from Lehman's Amish catalog. This is a great catalog, by the way, to check out for non-electric tools. I will reference it on my Facebook Grow Your Power page. So, the laundry plunger. The plunger is raised and lowered in the bucket to agitate the clothes for about a half hour. Then the clothes are wrung out, put into rinse water for another squishing and wringing out. Ultimately, I just use my hands and arms to dunk clothes up and down, swish them around, squeeze them, etc. It's not easy work, but oh well, physical work keeps the body strong. As for really dirty work clothes, Levi's, cords, dungarees, I found they were most easily cleaned by laying them on a flat board and taking a scrub brush to them. Okay, here's a convenience that many people like to use daily, a coffee grinder. Certainly electric-powered utilities are easier to use and require less of our energy. But I think actually that whatever we gain with easiness, we mostly lose in healthy physical activity. I used a steel Corona grinder to easily hand grind coffee beans or corn into cornmeal, and regular beans and rice into a flour. Grinding enough wheat kernels for bread flour could be done, but I often chose to sprout the grain and make an unleavened Essene bread that I could bake in the sun. I also used a hand meat grinder. For meat, nuts, wet foods like sprouted beans or grains, pesto, hummus, hominy. It's the primitive blender, and it works great. I actually never tried grinding fruit. I'll have to try it. One great thing about relying on your homestead is knowing that what you have is mostly what you have. You don't have a lot of money for buying things at stores. So, you become creative and resourceful. always finding ways to reuse things, to try new things, and to find more than one use for an item. I wanted to make my own yogurt. It's easy to warm milk, fresh from the goat or the store, warm it to room temperature, and then add a couple spoonfuls of a commercial acidophilus yogurt. The acidophilus culture will multiply itself into a quart of yogurt. If you can keep those jars at about 70 to 77 degrees for about 12 hours. With an electric yogurt maker, no problem. Without electricity, creative thinking is called for. And I have heard of some very creative solutions. Friends have kept yogurt warm in a basket with a down comforter on the bottom and a pillow on top, or in an ice chest filled with blankets. I devised the strategy of heating my small pressure cooker, turning it off and quickly slipping the jars of yogurt in, covering it up and letting it sit overnight. It worked. And there are substitutes for many little items that we usually buy at a store. Leaves can be used for toilet paper, but know your leaves. For a dustpan, a piece of paper held firm by your 2 feet works as a dustpan. Grandma's hands substituted for a funnel. Baking soda cleans teeth. Ceanothus flowers work as hand soap. How about air conditioning or dehumidifying your home? Another electrical expense. Swamp coolers can be bought and will use less electricity than air conditioning systems. Or you can make your own swamp cooler and run it off 12-volt DC power. Swamp coolers will cool the air by simple evaporation of water. For dehumidifying, rock salt or similar items in open containers will draw the moisture from the air. Electricity is probably the cleanest form of energy and probably the best for lighting. Computers are a wonderful at-home fund of useful information for a homesteader. For contact with friends and family, a cell phone is most handy. It is helpful to have a little electricity, but not essential. I lived for 12 years without any electricity and without a phone in my home. And there were positive effects from this. To speak with neighbors, for example, I would have to walk to their homes. But the walk and the real contact was worth it. I had the experience of missing pickups with teenage daughters who were in town, however. They were somewhere, and no possible phone contact. The first time I freaked out and called the police from a payphone. The next time I just went to trust. She will find her way home. Trust is a good thing to surrender to. My experience was that it works. I'm going to switch here to a recorded interview with Nastasha, a local off-grid homesteader who we talked to in the last show. She will tell us how she meets her family's energy needs for cooking, heating, lighting, and electronics. So I know that you are off-grid here, and I'm curious what you use for your energy sources.
Well, we do use some propane. We have a 2-burner propane stove, which we use in our kitchen, and we do have an on-demand hot water heater that uses propane. 2 on-demand hot water heaters that use propane for hot water. And then aside from that, we have a cob oven that we use often, and makes the most amazing roasted anything, because it's like a big clay pot that just keeps the moisture in. And so that gets heated with wood. And we have an outdoor hearth that we use. It's kind of like our living room, where we have a fire with wood most nights, and we cook on that some of the time. And then in terms of electricity, we are all the way off grid, and we don't have any solar system, except for we have solar lights. We have that each have their own individual little solar panel. Those are they're called Sun King. Really good solar light.
Solar lights. You have electricity then?
No, they get plugged into their own individual solar panels. So they each have a solar panel that's mounted on our roof, and so there's a cord coming from each solar panel that plugs into each individual light. And then we have a cell phone and a computer, and I generally plug those in my car when I'm driving. I just charge it in my cigarette lighter. We used to use candles, but I don't really like burning paraffin candles because of the pollution from them, and they also just don't work very well in a kitchen that has a breeze passing through it. So yeah, the solar lights are our most recent upgrade in our power system.
And I do notice a wood stove, and so that's another source of energy. You cut firewood and...
It's true.
Yeah.
We cut all our firewood from the land here, tan oak and fir, and
an occasional madrone, perhaps.
Well, not too much madrone, maybe a little bay. There's some bay. We use that for heating both of our spaces. We also have a wood-fired cook stove in our kitchen, which we use when we're doing big projects like bone broth or rendering lard or canning, when we're doing canning, because it's such a big surface area that we can heat up and heat lots of pots all at once. And so yeah, we use a lot of wood for heat and cooking.
Nowadays, an initial investment in solar panels can provide for many electrical needs. After about 15 years of homesteading, I created some solar electricity. I started with 2 small panels, I think about 3 amps each, 2 batteries, and an inverter in our 1,000 square foot house. We had a light or 2 in every room, though we wouldn't have them all on at once. And we used the battery's 12-volt power for some lights and a radio, and inverted to 120 AC for other lights and a computer. Cell phones and flashlights could be easily recharged with this amount of power. My partner was frustrated, however, when the sun did not shine for several days in a row, so a bigger system, especially with a larger battery bank, was necessary. Electrical conveniences and tools use a lot of power. Ultimately, I got frustrated using only hand tools for construction, and I purchased enough power to run a simple power jigsaw. We had several propane tanks which we filled in town. We mostly used propane for cooking and for heating bath and wash water. At the time, we were able to purchase an on-demand hot water heater that had a mechanical start, as opposed to electronic start. No electricity needed. I don't know why anyone anymore would opt for the old-fashioned hot water heaters, which have to continually heat 40 or more gallons of water. With an on-demand heater, the coiled copper water pipes of incoming cold water are run past a heating element, Within seconds, the heater begins producing continual hot water, as much as you want. One can also use the simple sun outside for cooking. Years ago, a friend taught me how to insulate a cardboard box using reflective aluminum foil inside and a glass window on top. This solar cooker could slow cook stews, grains, potatoes. Fire, the basic primitive heating element. As Nastasia stated, a primitive fire is used by her family for heat, for cooking, and baking. It can be a substitute for the grid, for propane and for electricity. And for companionship, your friends will love to come visit and sit around a fire. I visited a friend living off-grid and walked through a lovely garden and came to a bathtub, an old cast iron type. The tub sat over a small depression in the ground, and a small fire burned in the depression. The fire heated the water in the tub to hot tub temperatures in about 45 minutes. And because the iron bottom of the tub became too hot to sit on, my friend had a plank of wood floating in the water, and he would sit on that to cushion himself from the iron heat. When my husband and I were camping around and about the States, we landed in a seniors' winter resort, a salt cedar grove along the Colorado River. A vacationing sheep herder served us a delicious homemade bread that he had baked in the ground. He had made a large fire in a large depression, maybe 5 feet around. After coals had formed, he laid in a cast iron Dutch oven that held the doughing mound of leavened bread. He covered the oven with coals, then ash, then dirt, and about a half an hour later, he unearthed the oven and served up an evenly browned loaf of hot bread. With a little butter, yum. He then put a few large potatoes into the Dutch oven and replaced it into the coals in the same way. When he pulled out the potatoes in an hour, he had his breakfast for the next day. He said a chicken could be cooked the same way. Fire produces ash, potash, potassium, which can be used to enrich a garden. Native Americans would purposefully do a control burn to produce ash to enrich the soil. In using a bare fire to cook food, you can use a grate, some skewers, or position rocks to hold a frying pan between them. Meat can be smoked over an outdoor fire. You can learn how to weave a cooking basket. That was used by Native Americans for heating water. They would heat the rocks first in the fire and then place them into the basket and heat water. To sum up, see yourself as a homesteader. Try on the image. See yourself playing with the sun and the wind, the branches and the soil. Hear yourself beginning to come up with new ideas for everything. Imagine yourself with a garden, eating gourmet meals every day, your body getting strong and sinuous from productive physical activity.
The crow was so just soaring and torn while the raven was walking.
Think of the things that you could make. Tools, presents for others, art for your own creativity. Imagine having only a part-time job or an independent skill to peddle. Think of how you might be able to create a trade economy with friends.
As long as when lovers talk and the crow's wings expand toward the cold ground surface.
See the trees and plants as your daily backdrop.
That the raven fell in love with the crow was a black.
See all the money you are no longer struggling to acquire as you enjoy your family and friends and your life.
Was a story of lovers that you already know.
I think a lot of my practices will be seen as barbaric or ridiculous or too much work. I am presenting them only to say that if we need to live without our modern civilization, or if we choose to lessen our dependence on the modern world, it can be done.
Black do come back. Much obliged, my fellow flyer of dark tide.
So please take whatever you wish from the image of being a homesteader. See for yourself.
My flight I'm not sought for a corvid you may be, but a crow you are not. My black diamond flying high, don't tell me such lies. For camp family ties, join lovers in the sky.
Some bright morning when this life is over, I'll fly away to that home on God's celestial shore. I'll fly away. I'll fly away, oh glory. I'll fly away in the morning when I die. Hallelujah, by and by, I'll fly away. When the shadows of this life have gone, I'll fly away. Like a bird from these prison walls, I'll fly. I'll fly away.
I will be back in 1 month at 11 o'clock on the first Wednesday of the month. And I'm going to continue this strain of talking about living off the grid and living without money and doing things for yourself. And I'll be talking to people about making things. How many things can you really make? We should talk about cars too. That is a big expense. And trade economies. I'm really interested in those.
When we meet, I'll fly away.
See you in a month.
Cold iron shackles on my feet.